In the last episode, we saw that Kali has become the curse on the temple. She has surrounded the temple as the Nighttide, determined to kill anyone who dares to dance over there again. So, a few days later, the priest returned, the older priest who had gone away for the birth of his baby girl. A few days later, he returned to find a wreck where the beautiful temple had once stood. It was like looking at the end of the world. The pillars were all broken and cracked. The corridors had caved in. The temple itself was lurching into the sea as though it was about to fall in. There was absolutely no sign of survival. The only thing that was still intact was the stone courtyard, where Shiva himself had danced, because that held the energies of Shiva, and even Kali at the height of her rage could not destroy Shiva's energies. Everything else had been destroyed. But it was not what the priest saw that scared him. It was what he couldn't see. That sense of something else that hung in the air, hung heavy in the air. So heavy it seemed to suffocate him. He felt like it was squeezing his heart till he was gasping with terror, a terror that was rising like vomit into his mouth and paralyzing his mind. Like a pungent, filthy stench, it had spread and swallowed up the air so that there wasn't even enough left to breathe. It was the curse. The priest could feel the curse. It was palpable. And with a creeping sense of horror, the priest realized that this was the work of Kali, that he was actually in the presence of the killer goddess, that he was standing face to face with death. Every instinct told the priest to run, to get the hell out of there. But even as he turned to run, he stopped. The money, how do you walk away from all that money, from that courtyard, from that miracle, that power? And so, in the very act of running away, the priest changed his mind. For all that money, he was going to make this work. He'd get the place cleaned up. That would be no problem. And actually, the broken look of the temple, that was pretty good. It added to the magic. His only real obstacle was going to be the goddess Kali, but he had a plan for that too. Oh yes. He had thought of a way of making a deal with the killer goddess. All he needed was an audience with her. Once he had softened her up with worship and prayer, he knew that he could get her to see things his own way. Funny how humans think that they can bribe the gods with prayer. Overnight, the priest changed the ways of the temple, but it was all very subtle. So the temple was still dedicated to Shiva, but the deity worshipped there now was Shiva's wife in her fearsome incarnation as Kali. The chant at the temple was still to Shiva, but the prayers were addressed to Kali. The lamp was still lit to Shiva, but now placed in front of Kali. It's all very subtle. And all this is done for 6 months maybe, till finally the priest is ready for his audience with the goddess, to offer her this bargain that he has thought of, to convince her to suspend the curse.